On a morning that should have been like any other, Clarice found herself facing a situation that would change her life forever. 7 months pregnant, she walked slowly through the silent house, a place that had once echoed with the plans and laughter of a family about to grow. Every corner of the house seemed to whisper memories of a recent past, full of promises and hopes shared with Ricard, her husband. She stopped in front of the kitchen table, where a piece of paper lay like a solitary artifact amid the stillness. The handwritten words trembled before her eyes, each letter infused with a coldness that cut through her soul. "I can't do this." There was no further explanation, not even a sweeter goodbye. Only the harsh reality that Ricard, the man she had dreamed of building a life with, had disappeared. Clarice sat down abruptly, the chair creaking under the weight of her despair. She caressed her belly, trying to find comfort in the small life growing inside her. "How could he?" she whispered into the void, her words evaporating in the heavy kitchen air. For a moment she allowed herself to cry, sobbing over the table as her mind whirled in a storm of unanswered questions. After a few minutes she wiped her tears, driven by a newfound determination. She was no longer just living for herself. There was a child coming, a child who would need all the strength and love she could give. Clarice stood up and began walking through the house, each step echoing in the quiet. She passed the baby's room, where the walls still smelled of fresh paint and the assembled furniture awaited the arrival of a new family member. In the closet, the tiny clothes, carefully chosen by Ricard, seemed to mock her pain. "Why?" she murmured, touching the soft fabric of a little onesie. Returning to the living room, she found photographs of them scattered around, each capturing a moment of happiness. Clarice picked up one of them, a photo of them on the beach, smiling under the summer sun. "You promised to be by my side," she said to Ricard's smiling image, the betrayal in her heart turning the words bitter. After long minutes lost in thought, Clarice finally put the photo aside and headed to the bedroom. There, the open wardrobe revealed the absence of Ricard's clothes, a visual reminder of his sudden departure. She approached the unmade bed, where the impression of his body still marked the sheet, and ran her hand over the depression as if she could feel the presence she so missed. It was then that she realized Ricard had taken not only his belongings, but also the hope of a future together, a future she had longed for. Clarice knew the day was just beginning, but for her, each passing hour felt like an eternity. She now had to face the reality of raising her child alone, without the man she believed was her life partner. As the sun began to set, bathing the room in shades of orange and gold, Clarice looked once more at the note on the table. With a heavy heart but newfound strength, she began to plan her next steps. Life, despite everything, had to go on. She didn't know yet, but the revelation coming the following week would further change the course of her life. A week after the lonely dawn that marked Ricard's disappearance, Clarice found herself plunged into an even more cruel reality. The news of what would be one of the most talked about social events of the year captured all the headlines, and paradoxically, Clarice's heart seemed to wither with every word she read. She was sitting at the kitchen table, the same one that had supported her tears days before, now covered with newspapers and magazines. Her eyes, red and swollen from crying, scanned the lines that screamed betrayal. Wedding of the year, Ricard and Isabella, united by love and fortune. How could he? Clarice whispered to herself, the words barely escaping her trembling lips. The article described Ricard as a man in love, ready to unite his life with Isabella, heiress to a technological empire. Photos of the couple adorned the page, showing them smiling at social events and luxurious dinners. Clarice stood up abruptly, the chairs around her protesting the sudden movement with loud squeaks. She walked into the living room, where the walls seemed to close in on her, each portrait of Ricard a reminder of the pain now consuming her heart. "Why, Ricard? Why lie?" she shouted into the void, her words echoing through the empty house. At that moment, the phone rang, cutting through the silence like lightning. Clarice hesitated before answering, fearing more bad news. However, the voice on the other end was comforting, familiar. "Clarice, it's me, Helena. I saw the news. Are you okay?" Helena's concern was palpable, even through the distance. "Helena," Clarice began, her voice faltering. "How could he do this to me, to his own child?" Tears began to flow again, each one a silent word of betrayal and heartbreak. "I'm so sorry, Clarice, I really am. But you need to know you're not alone. I'm here for you," Helena replied, her voice firm and decisive. I don't know what to do," Clarice admitted, feeling lost in a sea of uncertainty. "Listen, I'll come over tomorrow. We can talk more and figure out how to deal with all this. You're stronger than you think, and together we'll find a way," Helena assured, her tone imbued with a determination that Clarice struggled to feel. The conversation with Helena brought a small comfort, but the hours that followed were long and lonely. Clarice spent the night awake, reliving every moment shared with Ricard, every whispered promise now revealed as a lie. At dawn, with the first light of day trying to penetrate the closed curtains, Clarice knew she would confront Ricard, not just for herself, but for the sake of her child. She would not allow her story to be told only by the tabloids. So with a heavy heart but a resolute mind, Clarice prepared for the confrontation that would occur at the church on Ricard's wedding day. As she arranged a folder full of documents that could change the course of the day, she whispered to herself, "Today, the truth will be revealed." On the morning that promised to seal the fate of Ricard and Isabella, Clarice felt each heartbeat like thunder in her chest. She arrived at the church as the first rays of sun caressed the ancient stones of the building, a somber contrast to the storm raging within her. With a folder of documents clutched tightly under her arm, she entered the sacred place quietly, hiding in the shadows behind the last row of pews. The interior of the church was adorned with white flowers and touches of gold, creating a fairy tale setting that only heightened the bitter contrast with Clarice's reality. The guests, a mix of high society and tech elites, chatted merrily, dressed in their most elegant attire. Clarice watched, each laugh and smile from the attendees like a blade to her betrayed heart. As the music began and the doors opened, Isabella made her grand entrance. Dressed in a silk and lace gown, she walked gracefully down the central aisle, her veil flowing behind her like a cascade of dreams. Clarice felt a pang of compassion for the woman walking toward disillusionment, unaware of what lay ahead. As Isabella passed by her, Clarice took a deep breath, gathering all the courage she had. She stepped out of the shadows, her determined footsteps echoing across the church's stone floor. Murmurs began as she approached the altar, curious and shocked glances turning her way. "Sorry to interrupt this moment," Clarice began, her voice rising clear and firm above the murmur of the guests. "But there are truths about Ricard that cannot remain hidden on his wedding day." Ricard, who was facing the altar, turned slowly, his face paling at the sight of Clarice. Isabella's expression shifted from happiness to confusion, and then to growing horror as she began to comprehend the implications of the interruption. "Ricard has a secret that everyone needs to know," Clarice declared, raising the folder for all to see. "He is not the man you think he is." All eyes in the church were fixed on her, each breath held in anticipation of her next words. Ricard took a step forward, trying to intervene. "Clarice, please, this isn't necessary," he pleaded, his voice a tense whisper. "Not necessary?" Clarice retorted, indignation sharpening her voice. "For you, maybe not. But everyone here, especially Isabella, deserves to know the truth." She then turned to the guests, preparing to reveal the evidence that would expose Ricard in front of everyone present. Clarice held the thick folder of documents, each page a testament to Ricard's hidden machinations. With a steady hand, she connected a flash drive to a pre-prepared projector, knowing that the images that followed would change the course of several lives. As the lights dimmed, the screen at the back of the altar lit up, revealing a series of documents, emails, and bank transfers. Murmurs grew as the guests absorbed the content presented. Clarice began explaining each piece of evidence, her voice unwavering, each word sharp and clear. "As you can see," she pointed to a projected email, "this is a detailed plan drawn up by Ricard to divert funds from Isabella's company." The next image showed a significant bank transfer to an overseas account. "This money was diverted 3 days ago," Clarice continued, her accusation echoing off the church walls. The silence that followed was heavy, every eye switching between the evidence on the screen and Ricard's pale face. Ricard tried to interrupt, his hands visibly shaking as he searched for words. "Clarice, this is a misunderstanding," he stammered, looking desperately at the guests, hoping for some form of support. Misunderstanding? Clarice retorted with disdain. Diverting funds from your fiancé's company is a misunderstanding? She then turned to Isabella, who had been watching the scene with a growing sense of desolation. Isabella, I'm sorry you have to find out this way. I had no other choice. You deserve the truth. Isabella, whose face had reflected a mixture of confusion and horror, finally stood, her eyes now glistening with tears of anger and betrayal, fixed on Ricard. How could you? She whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Ricard, now completely pale, opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He looked from Clarice to Isabella and then to the audience, who now watched him with eyes of judgment and disdain. Finally, Isabella found her voice, firm despite the obvious pain. There will be no wedding, she announced, addressing the congregation before turning to Ricard with clear decision in her gaze. I cannot marry someone I cannot trust. With those words, Isabella left the altar, leaving Ricard alone before a stunned audience. Clarice, watching the scene, felt a complex mix of vindication and sympathy for Isabella, who, like her, had been deceived by a man they thought they knew. As the church slowly emptied, with guests whispering to one another and casting disgusted looks at Ricard, Clarice gathered her documents. She knew that, despite the justice she felt, the consequences of this revelation were only beginning to unfold. And so, preparing for future challenges, Clarice quietly left the church, ready for the next chapter in her quest for renewal and justice. In the days following the church scandal, Clarice tried to piece her life back together, striving to find some sense amid the chaos. Her solitary refuge was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of her younger brother Carlos, whose presence was as tumultuous as the wind that heralded his arrival. Carlos appeared at Clarice's door one cloudy afternoon, carrying a single suitcase and wearing a grin that barely concealed his usual lack of concern. "Hey, Clarice! Surprise!" he exclaimed, pushing the suitcase inside without waiting for an invitation. Clarice, still shaken and vulnerable, looked at him with a mix of surprise and resignation. "Carlos, what are you doing here?" Her voice had a slight tremor, a reflection of weeks of stress and uncertainty. "Well, you know, things weren't going well in the city," Carlos began, throwing himself onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. "I thought a change of scenery might be good, and who better to visit than my favorite sister, right?" Clarice sighed, knowing that Carlos's visit could extend indefinitely. "Carlos, this isn't a good time." But Carlos was already making himself comfortable, talking about his latest failed get-rich-quick schemes, each more implausible than the last. "So this alpaca investment scheme, you wouldn't believe the return they promise." Clarice tried to focus on what Carlos was saying, but her mind was elsewhere. She needed stability and support, not the distractions and chaos that her brother seemed to bring with him like a second shadow. In the following days, Carlos's eccentricities became even more apparent. He interrupted one of Clarice's virtual job interviews by playing loud music in the next room, oblivious to the disruption he caused. On another occasion, he forgot to pick up an important package that Clarice was expecting, essential for the craft business she was trying to start. "Carlos, you need to understand that it's not just my things that are being affected. It's my life, the life of your soon-to-be niece or nephew." Clarice confronted him after the latest incident, her frustration clear in her voice. Carlos, whose face usually displayed a carefree expression, seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation for the first time. "Sorry, Clarice. I didn't mean to cause problems," he murmured, the casualness in his voice replaced by a tone of genuine concern. "I know, Carlos, but I need you to be more responsible. If you're going to stay here, you need to help, not complicate things." Clarice responded, hoping her brother would understand the seriousness of her words. Promising to do better, Carlos tried to adapt to Clarice's needs, although his good intentions were often overshadowed by his forgetful and impulsive nature. Clarice, in turn, tried to maintain her patience, clinging to the hope that her brother's presence could eventually transform from a burden into real support. As she navigated the storm that was living with Carlos, Clarice began receiving anonymous messages. These messages suggested that Ricard's story had even more hidden layers than she had imagined. Layers that could shed light on the true reasons behind his actions. Determined to uncover the whole truth, Clarice knew she needed all the strength she could muster, perhaps even the unwitting help of Carlos. The tumultuous routine in Clarice's house gained a new element when she began receiving enigmatic messages on her cell phone. Each notification brought with it a wave of anticipation and anxiety. The messages, short and cryptic, suggested that Ricard's betrayal was deeper and darker than just an affair and embezzlement. "Look deeper where you least expect it," read one of the messages. Another said, "The truth about Ricard lies not only in what he did, but also with whom he associated." Sitting on the sofa after another restless night, Clarice stared at the phone, the words of the messages dancing in her mind. She knew she couldn't ignore the insinuations, but she also recognized that unraveling these mysteries alone would be a challenge beyond her capabilities. That's when she decided to call Helena, an old friend from university who now worked as an investigative journalist. "Helena, I need your help," Clarice began as soon as Helena answered, her voice filled with urgency. Helena, always ready for a good mystery, responded with immediate interest. "Of course, Clarice. What's going on?" Clarice explained about the anonymous messages and the suspicions they raised. "I don't know who's behind this or what exactly they're trying to tell me, but I feel it's important," she confessed, feeling the weight of uncertainty. "We'll figure it out together," Helena assured her confidently. "Can you send me the messages? I'll start looking through my contacts and see what I can dig up about Ricard's connections." In the following days, the two of them dove into a detailed investigation. Helena used her resources and contacts in journalism to track Ricard's financial movements and associates, while Clarice reviewed old emails and documents Ricard had left behind, looking for any clues that might have been overlooked. One afternoon, as Clarice was rummaging through a box of documents Ricard had always kept locked, she found references to a logistics company that frequently provided services for Ricard's father's business. "Helena, I found something," Clarice said, immediately calling her friend. "It's a company my father-in-law used. It seems Ricard was also involved with them somehow." Helena responded with keen interest. "That's great, Clarice. This might be the link we've been looking for. I'll investigate this company and see what more I can uncover." The puzzle pieces began to slowly fit together, each discovery leading to more questions. Ricard's involvement with the logistics company was suspicious, and additional documents suggested there was more than just services being exchanged. There were signs of undeclared and possibly illegal transactions. As Clarice and Helena continued to build the case around Ricard's dubious activities, it became clear they would need to confront him personally to get the final answers. Determined to expose the full extent of his betrayal, they planned the next step of their investigation, a direct confrontation with Ricard at a public event where he would be trying to restore his image. On a cold and windy autumn day, Clarice and Helena prepared to confront Ricard on the ground he considered safest. A high-profile networking event attended by influential politicians and prominent investors. Armed with a dossier full of undeniable evidence, the two women felt a mix of nervousness and determination as they approached the luxurious hotel where the event was taking place. "Are you ready?" Helena asked, watching Clarice as she firmly adjusted the folder in her hands. "I am. It's now or never," replied Clarice, taking a deep breath to calm her racing heart. They entered the main hall, where the buzz of conversations and negotiations filled the air. Clarice immediately recognized Ricard, who was surrounded by a group of people, laughing and gesturing with a confidence she knew was only a facade. Next to him, smiling politicians and attentive investors hung on to his every word. Helena and Clarice exchanged a look of complicity before heading directly toward Ricard. As he noticed their approach, Ricard's expression shifted from carefree to a mix of surprise and fear. "Good evening, Ricard," Clarice began, her voice strong and clear, cutting through the conversations around them. "It looks like you're having a good time." Ricard tried to mask his discomfort with a forced smile. "Clarice, Helena, what a surprise! To what do I owe the honor?" "Let's skip the formalities, Ricard," Helena intervened, opening the folder. "We have something you need to see." She pulled out several documents, spreading them before him and the onlookers, who now watched the scene with growing interest. The documents were clear and detailed, exposing hidden transactions and Ricard's involvement in illicit activities. The evidence showed how he had embezzled funds not only from Isabella's company, but also how he was involved in a network of corruption affecting multiple companies and even public policies. The silence that followed was palpable. Ricard, caught off guard and with no way out, stammered, trying to formulate a response. This is a misunderstanding. I can explain, he mumbled, but his voice was weak and unsure. Helena, not missing a beat, continued. There's nothing to explain, Ricard. The evidence speaks for itself. You manipulated, lied, and stole, and we're making sure everyone here knows it. As Ricard struggled to comprehend the situation, journalists who had been discreetly alerted by Helena began to surround him, microphones in hand, asking incisive questions. Within minutes, news of his dishonesty began to spread. The politicians and investors present stepped back, their expressions of interest replaced by disgust and anger. The police, already notified by Helena about the potential confrontation and evidence, arrived at the scene. Ricard was taken into custody on charges of fraud and corruption, his arrest being documented by cameras eager to capture the dramatic conclusion. With Ricard taken away by the police, Clarice felt a mix of relief and sadness. Looking around, she saw Ricard's empire of influence crumble, each associate quickly trying to distance themselves from the scandal. Helena placed a hand on Clarice's shoulder, offering a supportive smile. You did what had to be done. It was brave. Clarice nodded, knowing that although that battle was won, the war against the shadows of Ricard's past could still bring new challenges. But for now, she had Helena by her side, giving her the strength to face whatever came next. Together, they prepared for the repercussions and next steps, ready to confront whatever the future held. After the dust settled from the dramatic confrontation and the legal repercussions for Ricard began to unfold, Clarice met with Isabella in a small, quiet cafe, away from the public and the press. The meeting was arranged by Isabella, who had a proposal and a thank you to offer. Clarice, I have no words to express my gratitude, Isabella began, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. You revealed the truth when I was blinded by love. I can't let that go without acknowledging your courage and integrity. Clarice, still adjusting to the calm after the storm of events, smiled slightly. Isabella, I did what I felt needed to be done, not just for me, but for all of us deceived by Ricard. Isabella nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and resolve. I would like to offer you something, not just as thanks, but as recognition of your worth. I have a position in my technology company that I believe would be perfect for you. It's a new project we're starting, and your insight and strength would be of great value. Clarice was surprised. The offer was unexpected but welcome. Isabella, this means a lot to me. I gladly accept and promise to bring my best to your team. With the new job secured, Clarice felt a wave of hope for the future, something that had seemed distant for a long time. It was a chance to start over, to build a secure life for herself and her child on the way. As Clarice embraced this new phase, Carlos, who had witnessed his sister's struggle and triumph, also felt it was time for a personal change. Inspired by Clarice's determination, he decided he no longer wanted to be a burden in her life. One morning, he sat down next to her in the kitchen, a serious look replacing his usual carefree demeanor. Clarice, I've been thinking, he began hesitantly. I saw everything you did, how you fought, and I realized it's time for me to take responsibility for my own life too. Clarice looked at him, surprised and curious. What do you have in mind? I enrolled in an electrician course, Carlos announced, a gleam of pride in his eyes. I want to do something useful, something that makes a difference. I don't want to be just the troublesome brother you have to put up with anymore. Clarice smiled, a mix of relief and admiration filling her heart. Carlos, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Knowing you're taking control of your life gives me even more strength. With Clarice starting a new professional chapter and Carlos embarking on his journey of self-improvement, both felt that despite past challenges, they were moving toward a brighter and more promising future. United by family ties and renewed by their own resolutions, they were ready to face whatever came next, beginning a new page in their lives full of possibilities. As Clarice prepared for her new role and Carlos for his classes, They didn't realize that the mysterious messages Clarice had received were just the tip of the iceberg. The true extent of Ricard's actions was yet to be fully uncovered, setting the stage for more revelations in the future. Clarice's new phase of life was about to be crowned in an unforgettable way. After months of emotional and physical preparation, surrounded by challenges and victories, the big day finally arrived. Labor started on a quiet early morning, and Clarice quickly headed to the hospital, accompanied by Carlos, who took on the role of support with visible, yet touching nervousness. At the hospital, as the hours passed, tension and anticipation grew. Carlos paced back and forth in the hallway while Clarice, focused and resilient, worked through each contraction with a strength she hardly knew she possessed. "You're doing incredibly well, Clarice," encouraged the nurse, holding her hand during the most intense moments. Finally, after hours of determined effort, a sharp cry cut through the silence of the delivery room. Clarice, exhausted and emotional, watched as the doctor lifted her baby girl, a healthy newborn with wide open eyes, taking in the new world around her. "Congratulations, it's a beautiful girl," said the doctor, handing the baby to Clarice. Tears of joy and relief ran down Clarice's face as she looked at her daughter, her heart overflowing with instant and overwhelming love. "Hello, my dear," Clarice whispered, gently stroking the baby's head. "I'm your mom, and I promise to do everything I can to give you the world." Carlos, now less nervous and visibly moved by the moment, approached timidly. "Hey, little one," he said with a shy smile. "I'm your Uncle Carlos. I promise I'll always be here for you and your mom." In that moment, with the new life softly crying in her arms, Clarice felt as if all the shadows of the past were finally dissipating. She promised her daughter a life full of love and honesty, far from the mistakes and betrayals that had marked the previous years. "We're gonna start anew, you and I," Clarice murmured as she cradled the baby, "and we're going to build a beautiful life together." The following days in the hospital were a blur of visits, medical checks, and quiet moments of connection between Clarice and her daughter, whom she decided to name Mia. Each feeding, each diaper change, each glance exchanged between mother and daughter strengthened the bond that united them, a silent promise of better days and fulfilled dreams. When it was time to leave the hospital, Clarice felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Holding Mia firmly in her arms, she walked through the hospital doors into the gentle glow of the early afternoon, feeling the sun warm her face and offer a silent blessing for her new journey. As Clarice adjusted to motherhood, new responsibilities, and routines, life seemed finally to be taking a smoother course. However, during a spring cleaning, an unexpected discovery in a forgotten corner of her home would reveal one last secret of Ricard's, once again promising to change the course of her life. Spring brought with it a feeling of renewal and the need for cleansing, both physically and emotionally, for Clarice. While Mia slept peacefully in her crib, Clarice took the opportunity to tidy up the house, opening windows to let in the fresh air and clearing away layers of accumulated clutter from the tumultuous months. Amidst organizing old documents and dusty keepsakes, Clarice found a box that had belonged to Ricard, hidden in a dark corner of the closet. Her heart sank at seeing his name, but curiosity and the need to completely close this chapter of her life compelled her to open the box. Inside, among various papers and personal items of Ricard, Clarice discovered a yellowed, sealed letter that had clearly never been sent. Her name was written hesitantly on the front. With trembling hands, she opened the letter, Ricard's words revealing themselves under the soft light of the room. "Clarice," the letter began, "there are no excuses for what I did, nor do I expect forgiveness. My heart is filled with remorse and pain at the thought of the sadness I caused. I write this letter to confess not only my crimes, but also to express the love I still have for you and our daughter. I have left her a bank account, the details of which are in this letter. It is all I can offer now, in the hope that it may somehow make up for the harm I caused." Clarice sat down, the letter trembling in her hands. The words were a small consolation, but the revelation of the bank account was a shock. She thought of Mia, the life she wanted to build for her daughter, a life free from the shadows of Ricard's past. After deep reflection, Clarice made a decision. She would use this money not just for Mia's benefit, but to help other women who had been betrayed and abandoned, just like her. "I will turn this betrayal into something positive," she murmured to herself, a firm resolve in her heart. In the following days, Clarice began planning the creation of an organization to support abandoned women. She met with lawyers to discuss the best way to use the funds and with consultants to help establish the foundation. "We'll call it Renewed Hope," Clarice decided during a meeting with her team of consultants, inspired by the transformation in her own life. With each step in creating the foundation, Clarice felt increasingly empowered, turning her pain into action. News of the new organization quickly gained support from the community and media, attracting donations and volunteers motivated by Clarice's story of overcoming adversity. With the launch of the foundation, Clarice held a large inaugural event where she shared her journey with an audience of supporters and women seeking help. Today, we turn a story of betrayal into one of hope and empowerment. "Together, we can help each other rebuild our lives," Clarice announced, receiving warm applause. As the foundation began to make a difference in many women's lives, Clarice knew she had made the right choice. She looked at Mia, now happily playing beside her, and smiled, promising herself to continue fighting for a better future for all of them. At the same time, the foundation's success was beginning to attract attention from afar, promising to further expand Clarice's impact and setting the stage for new challenges and opportunities. As spring turned into summer, Clarice dedicated herself intensely to her mission of bringing the Renewed Hope Foundation to life. She met daily with social work specialists, lawyers, and counselors to shape an organization that offered not only support, but also hope and a new beginning for women who had suffered betrayals and abandonment similar to what she had faced. "I want our foundation to offer more than just legal advice. It should be a place where women can feel safe and supported in all aspects," Clarice explained during a planning meeting. Her eyes shone with a mix of determination and passion. "We need programs that address mental health, professional training, and financial support." One of the consultants, Dr. Emily Santos, a psychologist with extensive experience in family therapy, nodded in agreement. "You're absolutely right, Clarice. Many of these women are coming from extremely vulnerable situations. Our approach must be holistic and empathetic." With the plans solidified and the team assembled, Clarice organized a press conference to officially launch Renewed Hope. The venue chosen for the event was decorated simply but elegantly, with banners displaying the foundation's logo and slogans like "Renew Hope, Renew Life." Journalists and local community members gathered in the hall, microphones and cameras ready to capture the moment. When Clarice took the stage, a respectful silence filled the room. "Good afternoon, everyone," Clarice began, her firm voice echoing through the hall. "Today, we not only launch the Renewed Hope Foundation, but also reaffirm our commitment to all women who have suffered abandonment and betrayal. Our mission is to provide the tools and support needed to rebuild their lives." She continued, sharing her own story of pain and betrayal, but also of overcoming and resilience. "My personal journey brought me here, and it is my wish that no woman has to face these challenges alone." The journalists' questions were numerous, ranging from the specific services the foundation would offer to how Clarice managed to turn her personal experience into a catalyst for social change. Clarice answered each one with the confidence of someone who deeply believes in the path she has chosen. After the conference, many women approached her, some with tears in their eyes, thanking her for her courage and expressing a desire to get involved with the foundation. Each shared story reinforced the importance of Clarice's mission and energized her determination. In the days following the launch, the foundation began receiving applications from women seeking help, and each application was a reminder of the impact that Renewed Hope was already beginning to have in the community. As Clarice dealt with the first cases and adjusted the foundation's services to better meet the needs of its beneficiaries, she knew that each small step was part of a larger journey. She was paving the way for other women to find a new chance in life, a legacy that began with her own struggle and was now expanding to reach and transform other lives. However, even with the initial success, unexpected challenges began to arise. testing the resilience and adaptability of the foundation. As the weeks turned into months since the launch of the Renewed Hope Foundation, Clarice began to see the fruits of her team's hard work. Stories of women who found a new beginning in their lives through the foundation began to spread, bringing recognition and credibility to the organization. Articles in local newspapers and social media posts praised the programs offered, from psychological counseling sessions to professional skills workshops. Clarice, did you see this? Helena, who had become a regular collaborator, showed her a recent article highlighting a success story from the foundation. A woman who had been helped to escape an abusive situation and restart her career shared her gratitude. "We're really making a difference," Helena smiled, proud. However, the increased visibility brought with it an exponential growth in demand for the foundation's services. Clarice often found herself in her office late into the night, analyzing reports and planning strategies to accommodate the growing number of women seeking help. In a team meeting, she expressed her concerns. "We're reaching many people, which is wonderful, but we're also at the limit of our operational capacity. We need more resources, more space, and most importantly, more funding to expand sustainably." The challenges were not only logistical. Clarice also faced significant bureaucratic obstacles. Grant applications and financial support requests were stalled in slow and complicated processes. In a conversation with a potential funder, she explained the situation. "Every delay we face means someone might be missing the chance for a better life. We need partners who understand the urgency of our work." Moreover, Clarice discovered that not all stories had happy endings. Some women continued to face challenges that seemed insurmountable, even with the support offered. This reality weighed on her heart and drove her to seek more resources and create even more robust support networks. "We're doing our best, but it's still not enough for some of the situations these women face," Clarice shared with her team during a review session. "We need to think about how we can not only support, but also empower them in a way that they can sustain themselves in the long term." Driven by these challenges, Clarice intensified her efforts to form partnerships with other non-governmental organizations and the private sector. She organized networking events, lectures, and fundraising campaigns, each event carefully planned to attract more support and expand the foundation's services. The local community began to respond. Companies offered sponsorships, and volunteers came forward to help. The foundation was growing, and with each step forward, Clarice renewed her commitment to turning suffering into hope. As the foundation established itself as a beacon of support in the community, Clarice realized that the road ahead still held many challenges. However, inspired by the stories of change she had already witnessed, she was ready to face whatever came, knowing that each small victory contributed to a greater change in society. Even with the inherent challenges, the foundation was preparing for its next big event, promising to bring new opportunities and perhaps new obstacles. Carlos had completed his electrician course with remarkable dedication and enthusiasm, a change that surprised even those who knew him best. His new trade not only provided him with valuable skills, but also a new sense of responsibility and self-esteem. He wanted to share this transformation, not just by living better, but also by helping others do the same. One sunny afternoon, while Clarice was reviewing the foundation's reports, Carlos approached her with a proposal. He carried a look of determination that Clarice recognized. It was the same look she had when she started the foundation. "Clarice, I've been thinking about how I can contribute more here," Carlos began, adjusting his glasses nervously. "I've learned so much this past year, and not just about electricity. I've learned what it means to have a purpose, you know?" Clarice looked at him, sensing the seriousness of his words. "I'm listening, Carlos. What do you have in mind?" "Well, I want to start offering workshops here at the foundation. Workshops on practical skills, not just about electricity, but also basic home maintenance things that can help these women become more independent. Things that can make a big difference in their daily lives." Clarice smiled, moved by her brother's initiative. "Carlos, that's a wonderful idea. Autonomy is one of the pillars we want to strengthen here. When would you like to start?" "As soon as possible," Carlos replied, clearly excited. I've already prepared an outline of what the first workshops could cover, and I thought about asking some electrician friends to help too. From then on, Carlos began organizing the workshops, which quickly became one of the most popular services offered by the foundation. Women of all ages participated, learning not only about electrical wiring and minor home repairs, but also gaining the confidence to handle issues that would have previously left them dependent on others. In one of the workshops, while demonstrating how to change a faucet, Carlos explained, "It's more than just fixing things. It's about knowing that you can. It's about not having to wait or depend on someone to solve problems you can fix yourself." One of the participants, a woman named Mariana, approached Carlos after the class. "I never thought I could do something like this on my own," she said, a gleam of accomplishment in her eyes. "You make it look easy, and you make us feel like we can do it too." Carlos smiled, feeling a wave of satisfaction from his work. "That's the point, Mariana. That's why we're here." With the success of the workshops, Carlos became an inspiring figure in the community. His journey of personal growth and contribution to empowering the women at the foundation served as a testament to the power of change and education. Clarice watched all this, immensely proud of her brother, who had, on his own, found a way to give meaning to his life while enriching the mission of the foundation. Together, they were making a real difference in the community, proving that personal transformation can lead to significant changes in the world around them. As Carlos continued to expand his workshop program, he began planning sessions that would include even more diverse skills, always focusing on empowering women to become increasingly self-sufficient. The foundation was becoming a beacon of light in the community, and each success story only reinforced Clarice and Carlos's commitment to continuing their work. However, new challenges and opportunities were on the horizon, preparing them for the next stage of their growing social impact. It was a typical autumn afternoon, with golden leaves dancing in the wind, when Helena appeared at the door of the Renewed Hope Foundation office. Clarice was buried under a pile of files, but upon seeing Helena, her tired expression brightened with a genuine smile. "Helena, what a wonderful surprise! What brings you here today?" Clarice stood up, approaching for a warm hug. Helena returned the hug with equal affection before sighing, a visible weight on her shoulders. "It's about a friend of mine, Anna. She's going through a really tough situation. I knew that if anyone could help, it would be you and the foundation." Clarice, always ready to offer support, gestured to a chair. "Sit down and tell me everything. We'll find a way to help your friend." As Helena detailed the challenges Anna was facing, Clarice listened intently, jotting down details and already thinking of resources and foundation programs that could be useful. The story was painful, involving job loss and a legal battle for child custody that left Anna on the brink. "Don't worry, Helena. We'll do what we can. I'll speak with our social assistance team and see how we can expedite support for Anna," Clarice promised, her determination reflected in her eyes. Grateful, Helena smiled, a spark of hope in her gaze. "Thank you, Clarice. I knew I could count on you. And speaking of which, I had an idea that might help not just Anna, but many other women in similar situations." Clarice leaned forward, interested. "I'm listening." Helena, excited, began to explain her proposal. "I was thinking of a series of articles. We could highlight the stories of the women who have been helped by the foundation. I believe bringing these stories to light would not only increase the foundation's visibility, but also inspire the community to support the cause more." Clarice considered the idea for a moment, its potential unfolding in her mind. "Helena, that's brilliant. Raising awareness has always been part of our goal. Your skills as a journalist would be invaluable to this project." Both excited about the new initiative, they began to sketch out a plan of action. They decided to select some of the most impactful stories and arrange interviews with the women who were willing to share their journeys. "We'll show the resilience of these women, their struggles, and their victories. We'll show the world what is possible when we give people the resources and support they need to get back on their feet," Helena said, her voice full of passion and conviction. Clarice nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude and purpose flow through her. "Together, we can make a big difference, Helena." As the day came to an end and the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink, Clarice and Helena said their goodbyes, both revitalized by their renewed partnership and the exciting project ahead. The foundation was about to embark on a new phase of visibility and impact, thanks to the unexpected reunion that rekindled a friendship and brought new opportunities to the cause. However, as they planned the next steps for the project, both were aware that new challenges might arise, challenges that would test the strength of the foundation and its mission. After the success of the articles highlighting the stories of the women's triumphs from the foundation, Clarice realized that the impact of renewed hope could extend far beyond the limits of her city. With growing recognition and an increasing number of requests for help coming from other regions, she felt it was time to take the foundation's mission to new horizons. In a strategic meeting with her team, Clarice presented her vision. We have a unique opportunity to expand our reach. The stories we shared have inspired many people, and it is our duty to extend our help to more women in need, she explained, looking around at the focused faces around the table. How do you plan to do that, Clarice? Asked one of the directors, curious about the logistics of the expansion. First, we need to establish partnerships with local organizations in other cities. They already know the specific needs of their communities and can help us implement our programs effectively, Clarice replied, detailing each step of her plan. Additionally, I will launch a crowdfunding campaign to raise the necessary resources for this expansion. Encouraged by her team's support, Clarice initiated contacts with several organizations. She participated in video conferences and meetings where she discussed possible collaborations and exchanged ideas on how to adapt the foundation's services to different communities. Simultaneously, the crowdfunding campaign was launched with a powerful message about the foundation's mission and the urgency of its expansion. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Donations began to flow from all parts of the country, with many donors leaving messages of support and sharing the campaign on their social networks. We're doing it, everyone, Clarice announced to her team during a follow-up meeting, showing the campaign's growing numbers. Every donation is proof that they believe in our work and the impact we can have. With resources secured, the foundation began implementing professional training programs in the new locations. Training workshops in areas such as information technology, administration, and general services were established, providing women with practical skills that could lead to stable employment opportunities. We are not just providing support, we are empowering these women so they can build a new life with their own hands, Clarice explained during an interview with a local news channel, highlighting the success of the expansion. As the foundation grew, so did the network of support and collaboration among the women who were part of it. Success stories began to emerge from the new branches, stories of women who not only overcame adverse circumstances, but who now actively contributed to the foundation's mission, helping others find the same path of renewal and hope. As Clarice contemplated the future, she knew that new challenges would arise with the expansion. However, the passion and commitment shared by her team and the women they served were constant sources of inspiration and motivation to keep moving forward, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that each challenge was an opportunity to further strengthen the foundation's impact. As the Renewed Hope Foundation expanded, operational complexities and differences in vision among team members began to emerge more frequently. Implementing programs in multiple locations brought not only logistical challenges, but also ideological ones, as different team leaders advocated diverse approaches to the same common goal. On a particularly tense afternoon, Clarice called an emergency meeting after receiving reports of growing disputes between the managers of the branches in two cities. The air was filled with expectation as team members gathered in the conference room, some in person and others virtually through a video connection. Clarice began the meeting calmly but with a clear firmness in her voice. I know we're all here because we believe in the Foundation's mission and want what's best for it. But we've been facing some significant challenges in our communication and how we're making decisions. One of the managers, Marco, expressed his concerns. Clarice, we're all under pressure to show results. but I feel some of our branches are receiving more resources than others. We need a fairer distribution to truly empower all the communities we serve." Another manager, Livia, chimed in. "It's not just a matter of resources, but also how we're approaching our programs. Some strategies that work in one city aren't effective in another. We need more autonomy to adapt programs to local needs." Clarice listened intently, nodding as each presented their points. She recognized that the tensions were partly the result of the Foundation's rapid growth and increased expectations. "I understand everyone's concerns and appreciate your honesty in bringing them up," Clarice responded after a long moment of reflection. "We'll implement a monthly review of resources to ensure each branch receives what it needs. Additionally, I'll encourage greater local autonomy, but on the condition that we maintain our core values and objectives in alignment." She proposed creating an oversight committee, comprised of representatives from each branch, to ensure all voices were heard and decisions were made more democratically. This committee will help us resolve imbalances and ensure we all share the same commitment to our values and goals. Clarice's solution was met with relief and approval. The team members felt that their concerns were not only heard, but also respected and addressed fairly. "Thank you, Clarice. This seems like a positive step for all of us," said Marco, a sentiment echoed by others in the room. With the conflicts resolved and a new governance system being implemented, the team felt rejuvenated and more cohesive. Clarice, for her part, was pleased to have navigated these turbulent waters with empathy and firmness, reinforcing the culture of openness and collaboration she had always valued. As the Foundation moved forward, with its leadership now even stronger, Clarice and her team were ready to face the upcoming challenges, aware that each problem overcome brought them closer to fulfilling their mission. However, they would soon discover that new external challenges awaited, challenges that would test the Foundation's resilience and adaptability in ways they had not yet anticipated. The tireless work and transformative vision of Clarice in leading the Renewed Hope Foundation did not go unnoticed. Beyond the direct impact she and her team were having on the community, her efforts began to gain recognition on a broader scale. With a mix of surprise and pride, Clarice received the news that she had been selected to receive a national award for female leadership in social initiatives. The awards event was set for an elegant ceremony in the capital, bringing together leaders from various fields who also contributed to significant changes in their respective spheres. Clarice, accompanied by Carlos and some key members of her team, dressed with elegance and simplicity, reflecting her direct and genuine approach to her work. As she was called to the stage to receive the award, the auditorium filled with warm applause. Clarice walked up with firm steps, each movement resonating with the responsibility she felt for her mission. As she accepted the award, she held the trophy delicately, feeling the symbolic weight of every story that recognition represented. "I am deeply honored and grateful for this recognition," Clarice began, her firm voice echoing through the microphone. "But this award is not just about me. It is about all the brave women who had the strength to rewrite their stories through renewed hope." She paused, looking at the attentive faces in the audience. Every woman who came to us carried a story of struggle, but also of immense courage. These women inspire our team every day, and they are the true heroines of this journey. Clarice then turned to speak about Carlos, whose personal transformation intertwined with that of the Foundation. "I also want to talk about the change that each individual is capable of inspiring. My brother Carlos is an example of this. From someone who initially needed direction, he has become a pillar of support and an example of transformation. Today, he leads workshops that not only teach practical skills, but also restore confidence and autonomy." Concluding her speech, Clarice emphasized the importance of community and collective support in the fight for a better future. Together, we are not just offering support, but building a platform for these women to rise and walk toward a future they themselves shape. The audience responded with a standing ovation, touched by the sincerity and passion evident in Clarice's words. As she stepped down from the stage, she felt re-energized by the support and clarity of her purpose. Back in her seat, with the trophy in hand, Clarice exchanged looks of understanding and gratitude with her team. They knew that, although the award was a milestone, there was still much work ahead. However, as they celebrated this recognition, a new challenge was approaching, one that would test the resilience and innovation of the foundation in ways they had not yet faced. After the public recognition and increased support for the foundation, Clarice was determined to further expand the reach of her initiatives. With the foundation solidly established and operating effectively in several cities, she began to envision an even larger platform that could transcend borders and have a global impact. In a vibrant, idea-filled team meeting, Clarice presented her ambitious plan. "We're doing incredible work here, but I believe we can do even more. I've been thinking about organizing an international conference on female resilience, an event that could bring together voices and experiences of women from around the world," she explained, her eyes shining with excitement. Carlos, always by her side, nodded in support. "That sounds amazing, Clarice. How do you plan to make this a reality?" "I'm considering partnerships with global organizations. We'll need support for logistics, promotion, and, of course, funding. But more importantly, we want to create a space where stories of resilience can be shared and celebrated, where connections can be formed to strengthen our support networks," Clarice detailed, her mind already mapping out the necessary steps. In the following months, Clarice dedicated herself to realizing this vision. She reached out to various international organizations, articulating the mission and goals of the conference with clarity and passion. One such session, held via video conference with the director of a major European NGO, exemplifies the approach she took. "We understand and share your vision, Ms. Clarice. Our organization has a strong commitment to female empowerment, and we believe a partnership could be extremely beneficial," said the director, clearly impressed with the proposal. "I'm very pleased to hear that," Clarice replied. "With our combined efforts, we can illuminate the stories of resilient women from all cultures, promoting global understanding and support." With partnerships being formed, the next step was organizing the conference. Clarice and her team chose a theme that resonated universally: weaving networks of resilience, global connections, local impact. The event was planned to include discussion panels, interactive workshops, and networking sessions, all designed to inspire and equip participants with knowledge and tools to navigate and overcome their personal challenges. As the event approached, excitement grew not only among the organizers, but also among the future participants, who began registering from various corners of the world. The conference promised to be a milestone, a gathering point for women to share their stories of struggle and success, learning from each other and creating an even stronger support network. On the eve of the conference, as Clarice reviewed the final details, she felt a deep sense of gratitude and renewed determination. The journey so far had been long and challenging, but the vision of a world where women could thrive together was beginning to materialize. With everything ready for the international conference, Clarice was prepared to welcome the participants and begin a new chapter in the Foundation's journey. However, she was aware that the success of the event would bring new challenges, testing the Foundation in ways that would require continuous adaptation and innovation. On the eve of the International Conference on Female Resilience, the renewed Hope Foundation office was buzzing with final preparations, but Clarice found a moment of calm amidst the chaos. Sitting in her chair, she watched her daughter Mia, now a 3-year-old girl, playing with a set of colorful blocks in the corner of the office. Mia's smile and her concentration as she stacked the blocks higher and higher brought a sense of peace and purpose to Clarice. "Mommy, look what I made!" Mia exclaimed, proudly pointing to her improvised tower. Clarice smiled, crossing the room to kneel beside Mia. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Did you build it all by yourself?" she asked, encouraging her daughter's independence and creativity. "Yes, and when I grow up, I want to help build big things like you," Mia replied with the seriousness that only a 3-year-old can muster, making Clarice laugh softly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. And you can be whatever you want to be," Clarice affirmed, hugging Mia briefly, before standing up and looking around the office, where every paper and every book had a story to tell. As she observed the details around her, Clarice reflected on the journey she had undertaken. From the dark days of betrayal and struggle to the foundation's success and national recognition, every step was filled with challenges and victories. Now, on the eve of an event that would mark the foundation's entry onto the international stage, she felt a mix of gratitude and optimism. "We're making a difference, Mia. Not just for us, but for women all over the world," Clarice murmured to herself, feeling a wave of responsibility and hope for all that was yet to come. Her reflection was interrupted when Carlos entered the room, carrying a stack of materials for the conference. "Clarice, everything is almost ready. How are you feeling about tomorrow?" he asked, placing the materials on a table. "I'm excited and a little nervous, to be honest," Clarice admitted, helping Carlos organize the pamphlets and brochures. "But above all, I'm optimistic. This conference is the culmination of everything we've worked for so far. It's a chance to show the world the strength and resilience of the women we have honored and supported." Carlos nodded, sharing Clarice's enthusiasm. "It's a big step, but if anyone can make it happen, it's you," he said with an encouraging smile. As the day turned into night and the office finally quieted down, Clarice sat back down, looking at Mia, who was now sleeping peacefully on a small couch in the corner. She thought about the future, not just the next day, but the years ahead. The conference would be just the beginning of new initiatives and possibly new challenges. But with the support of her team, the inspiration from her daughter, and the passion that drove her, Clarice was ready to face whatever came, knowing that every challenge was an opportunity to grow and make an even greater difference. Chapter 20: Legacy of Love and Hope. In the aftermath of the International Conference on Female Resilience, Clarice reflected on the sea of faces she had encountered, each bearing its own story of struggle and triumph. The event not only brought together women from various continents, but also sparked transformative dialogues and established new partnerships that promised to take the mission of the Renewed Hope Foundation even further. In one of the most memorable moments, a panelist from a remote African village shared how technology and training provided by the foundation had empowered women in her community to start small businesses. The story was met with enthusiastic applause and emotional tears from participants and spectators. Clarice, watching from the front row, felt each word resonate deeply, reaffirming the impact of her work. "Clarice, you've done something incredible here," Helena commented, approaching her during a break. "Look around, you've united worlds here." Clarice looked around, observing groups of women engaged in lively conversations, some exchanging contacts, others just sharing a moment of laughter or a comforting embrace. "It's more than I ever imagined, Helena. And to think it all started with a simple idea to support those who felt as lost as I did." As the conference drew to a close, Clarice and her team gathered to discuss the next steps. "We have a golden opportunity to expand our programs, especially in developing countries. The stories we heard here are a clear call to action," Clarice explained as she navigated through a digital world map, marking potential locations for new foundation branches. The team agreed enthusiastically, each member inspired by the energy and outcomes of the event. "Let's carry this forward," said one of the coordinators, "not just as a series of programs, but as a global movement." With the success of the conference still echoing in their minds, Clarice took Mia, who had accompanied her mother and observed everything with curious eyes, for a quiet stroll through the park near the event venue. As they walked, Clarice reflected on the legacy she was building, not only for the women the foundation helped, but also for her daughter. "Mommy, are all these women like you?" Mia asked, holding Clarice's hand. "They are like us, Mia. They have dreams, face challenges, and keep trying, just like us," Clarice replied, squeezing her daughter's hand. "So they're superheroes," Mia concluded with a smile, making Clarice laugh. "Exactly, my dear. And remember, you can be a superhero too, in any way you choose." Clarice knew that the challenges would not cease. The journey ahead still held obstacles and lessons, but each difficulty would be a chance to grow and enhance the foundation's impact. With a legacy of love, hope, and empowerment already established, she was more than ready to face the future, confident that each step forward contributed to a more just and empowering world for all women.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.